Hey everybody, welcome to VTS17. I'm your host, Keith, and I'm glad to have you. Here I am broadcasting live from Cuiabá, Brazil. Well, it's not really live, is it? Here I am being recorded in a room in my house in Brazil. Anyhow, glad you guys could join. For you new folks, thanks for joining up. I hope you guys get a lot out of the VTS. For those who've been with us for a while, thanks so much for hanging in there and for being a part of this and helping me to do some good things in the world. And also, hopefully, I really enjoy teaching you guys some animation. And I'm hoping that you're getting a lot out of this as well. This month, we got some really fun stuff. First thing we're going to cover is I'm going to go over, pick up where we left off, okay? We'll go over the stuff that we've been covering since about VTS14 or so on acting and blocking and things like that. The last 2 months we've been looking at me block a scene based off of what I did to not storyboard it, but thumbnail it and plan out the acting based off of stuff I've taught in 12 and 13. 14 I did the application. 15 and 16 we're showing how it works in the computer. 17, here we are. This month we're going to go ahead and wrap that up, at least in the sense of talking about the first pass blocking, how we're going to nail that down. So we're going to take a look at that. We'll take a look at the stuff I did. We'll do a little time lapse and it'll be fun to watch. So next thing we're going to do, I've had a lot of feedback about what's this thing about opened and closed posing for the face? And it's just something that I've never been taught this by anybody. I've never seen it written anywhere. But it's just something I incorporated in my work, and it always seemed to work well for me, and people respond well to it. And it seems it adds an extra level of dimension to the stuff that I like to do. Is it valid because it wasn't written in some other book? Heck, if I know half the things I do aren't written in a book, more than half the things I do aren't written in a book. But it seems to do okay. People like my work and gets me paid. So in that regard, I suppose it's perfectly acceptable. And so I'll talk to you some more about that. And then to wrap it up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some how to build breakdown or second pass blocking. A lot of times is what I'll call it. It's like once we get a buy off on that first part of blocking, we'll go into what I call second pass blocking, where we start adding breakdowns and some of the eases while we're still in step mode, while we're still able to build things, and it's very easy to edit. So we're going to kind of move through this scene as we go through the months on the VTS. I'm going to use this scene as a platform to explain all the different ways I do different things. So we've talked a lot about blocking because to me, blocking is really important. It's the foundation. If your foundation has cracks, if you're built on a piece of land that's sliding, it doesn't matter what kind of paint you put on the thing, it's not going to work as a house. So, following that metaphorical allegory simile, pick one. I can't remember what the exact thing is. We're going to go ahead and move along these lines. So, anyways, thanks for being in. Let's get going, and let's see if we can find something new this month.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is like 1 frame per second of me grabbing this stuff, and it's kind of running at fast speed. And I'm going to kind of walk my way through it. A little bit of setup stuff right here. What I'm doing right here is I'm trying to find the pose where after he says "Sir," it's a settling pose. I think it's important to kind of sell that. So I'm using the previous pose where he gets the salute hand up, and he has his reporting "Sir," and his hand comes up and he's got "Sir," but I need to settle it to kind of let that moment read, because we need the beat to get to the funny part. So I've just kind of used this. I'm using this previous pose, and I'm kind of testing around with how I bounce back and forth between the poses, and I'll do that quite a bit as I'll jump back and forth between poses to see how it moves from one end to the other. And you see I'm just kind of playing around here with the silhouette of the arms and just trying to get a sense of him really getting really into this whole thing. And I'm trying to build a little bit. I'm trying to get some sense of him just hitting that moment and really settling in there. So that's why I wanted to have him settle down here. I've turned down some wires here because I was having a hard time picking his shoulders. I wanted to get some stuff, and so you see I spent a lot of time on little things, just trying to get little things to work, and just trying to get a sense of the weight settling and get the head at the right angle, and I decided that I like that pose, so I decided to move on to the one where he notices that he's got the wrong hand up for the salute. You notice there's some weird stuff right there at the eyes is because I was using an old version of the rig that the eye squash was broken. I fixed that later on. Anyhow, right here is I'm really playing around with getting that sense of oops, oh man, I think I'm about ready to I just about blew it. Oh, I don't know, I hope you didn't notice. So I reset the eyes and I kind of constructed them to give that worried look, and I just reset the mouth right there that you just saw to kind of give it something new to work from. A lot of times if the pose that I'm going for in the face is very different from the one I had before, it's easier to just reset the controllers so that I can build something good from scratch. Sometimes it's easier to just use what I had and modify it. It all depends on the goal at hand. In this instance, it didn't make sense to use that smile and the angry brow kind of thing to communicate this sense of I don't know, desperation, I guess is a word, dread. There's an inner sense of like, oh gee, I blew it. And so what I've done here is I'm stepping through it and I'm kind of seeing how the transition works, and I'm testing out how the poses play together. I kind of like it, but what I'm going to do is now move on to the next one. Oh, hey, look at that. My AVG files are updated. Fantastic. So I'm moving on to the other pose where he has switched his arms and he gets the other arm up. And so here I'm not resetting everything. I'm building it from what I had before, and I just found it would be easier to do that with this because I kind of like where he is in the screen space. If I hit the reset button on his body, a lot of things would pop back into place that would be difficult to get back to where they were. So it was just easier to build it from here. I'm spending a lot of time trying to get the torso working right so that the twist has a sense of play to it. But I also want to change the pose enough so that, you know, when it switches from one to the other, you get a strong sense that something has happened. Now, of course, when I get into next month, I start building breakdowns for this stuff. The breakdowns and the switch is going to really have a lot to do with it. The screen switch you saw there is me trying to grab a controller from a different view, and sometimes I'll do that. But you're noticing this is the camera that we're rendering to. As much as possible, I try to pose to the camera, because that's the view that the audience sees. I try to work in the render camera as much as possible. I'll hop around to perspective views to grab things, but I generally am not going to be posing things while looking through a perspective view. If I'm going to make adjustments to the character, I'm going to look through the camera that the audience is going to look through, because that's the one that matters. I'll check and make sure things are okay in the other views, but really this is the one that matters. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here with the mouth is I'm trying to get that kind of, oh, you didn't notice that, did you, kind of thing. So his eyes are gonna be not focused, and he's gonna try and pass this off like nothing happened. Like, no, I didn't salute with the wrong hand, I'm now saluting with the right hand, and you didn't notice that. So now here I'm just bouncing back and forth between poses, and there I've made some changes to the mouth, and I'm trying to get this sunken in a little bit. I'm playing around with the line. Oh, I know what I'm doing right here. Sorry about that. I was happy with the pose of where it was, and now I'm doing the one where he flinches when he gets yelled at by his boss. Okay, the boss yells at him, and so now he flinches down. He still kind of has that salute up there, but he's kind of hiding under it. So this is where I'm pushing his body forward and pushing his shoulders up, and he's sinking down, and the facade of his competence is crumbling here. And it's important to try and build that off of the previous one. This is not one where I'd reset much as far as the body goes. And I'm trying to build some tension, some sense of flinching in the body. Here I reset the mouth because the mouth shape is going to be very different from oh, you didn't notice that one. This is going to be more of like a flinch, like, oh, you caught me. And so I'm trying to build that mouth shape is very significantly different. So it was enough for me to go ahead and just reset the mouth and replay with things. And so mess around with the eyes here, the lids, and trying to get the cheeks squished up, you'll notice, and I'm getting the brows, trying to get those in shape, trying to get the shape of the lids just right. As much as possible, you wanna have the lids accentuate what the brows are doing. If you can build your rigs or have your rigs built so that, especially for cartoony stuff, if you can have your rigs built so that the lids can be shaped so that the lines of the lids can play with the lines of the brows. And so there I kind of hit that pose, and now I'm messing around with some other ones. I'm just jumping through the poses to see how they work and seeing how it all feels when I start playing with it together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the body to low res and the face to high res, and I'm going to really polish up and clean up a lot of the facial poses, because what looks good in low res or medium res for the face, invariably whenever you switch over to high resolution for rendering, the smoothing doesn't work just right. Sometimes polys collapse on themselves, and so this is a pass I'll do. I'll go over everything once I'm really happy with things, and I'll really tweak and really polish up these facial poses. And this is the same thing you would do in traditional animation. In traditional animation, you would draw a rough, and you'd get you'd get things nailed down, and you'd really kind of really define the performance and the motion and the poses, and then you would go back and you'd say, you know what, I could make this stronger. I can make this stronger. So you'd redraw this one thing here or that one thing there. You'd play around with some lines, and you'd redraw it a couple of times just to trying to get that perfect drawing. And so that's really what I'm doing here, is I'm just using a computer and I'm trying to get those perfect drawings, just where things are just right. And so these are the final little facial tweaks in high res so that I know that this stuff's going to work. And so I'm going to go to this pose back here and kind of adjust the mouth a little bit and kind of accentuate things and try and get the lines rolling together and clean this one up a little bit. I'm not sure I like this pose, but maybe we can address that later on. This pose is kind of fun. So once I've got the face kind of working and I played around with the mouth there, I kind of like that doopy underbite sort of thing. Alright, so now what I'm going to do here is you're going to notice that I'm doing a lot of little things with the eyes. And this is just cleaning up the eye lines. Eye lines are really important for selling a thinking character. If the character, if he doesn't look like he's looking at something, he looks kind of spacey. Like here, I want him to kind of look a little spacey, like he's not looking at something. So I want to defocus his eyes. And then here I want him to notice that he's coming back and he's looking at the boss. So I want to bring them back into focus so he's looking back at the screen. And so you count the eye lines to really make sure that stuff is functioning really well. I've kind of got it all cleaned up, and that's where I'm at with it, and I'm pretty happy with all those poses. And so let's move on to our conversation about closed and open facial posing and stuff like that. And we'll come back to this when I start talking about how I'm going to start handling breakdowns.
All right. So I'm hoping that was useful to you guys. Like I said, I could have filmed the whole rest of the year just working on that, because it took me a while to figure this stuff out. But as you see, it wasn't too terribly difficult. I wasn't trying to find something brand new, because the idea was there all the way from the beginning, all the way back to where I figured out what he's like and what he's thinking and all these different things. The idea was there. It's just a matter of finding it in this puppet. Okay, so why take all this time to really block this stuff out, to really block out the face? I mean, you saw I took a long time just playing around with the face and just little different combinations of mouth shapes and stuff. It's really important, because in a production environment, the most important thing you need to do is you need to serve the vision of the director. Okay, I have vision, I have artistic ideas, I bring a lot of stuff to my scene, but ultimately, he's writing my paycheck. So he's the guy who decides what's good and what isn't, okay? So it's important for me to communicate my ideas and my thoughts to the director clearly. That's the big thing right here. Clear, easy to read, easy to understand. I don't want to have to give him anything to interpret, at least from an emotional standpoint. Yes, he has to interpret the motion because this stuff is still all stepped. And he'll have to interpret, certain aspects of technical things, like how's that overlap going to work? Well, okay, how's a little anticipation going to work? Or all the little things that a lot of times animation teaching talks about. A director at this stage of the game If he's thinking about those things, he probably ought to be an animation supervisor and not a director, okay? I'm just being honest. A director at this stage of things needs to see your scene and see if it's going to emotionally tell the story of that character at that moment, at that time, for the film. So, it's got to work on an emotional level. It means it's got to communicate clearly, expressly, and simply, very quick. He's got to be able to watch it one time and feel what that character's feeling. Now, he knows in his mind, or he or she, they'll know in their mind what they want that character to feel. Your job is to try and match up your created reality with this internal mental reality that the director has. And you're never going to get it one-on-one, okay? Because a director would always do things differently if he could. What you want to do is you want to get it most of the way. Okay, you want to get pretty close to one-on-one. You don't want to be doing this, two ships passing in the night, where you're not addressing his ideas at all. Now, it happens. You can do all the right things. You can study, you can ask the right questions, you can get down to the internal motivations of a character. You can do everything right in your job description. You can do everything by the book, or everything by the video. And you could still go to dailies, put it up on screen, and the director say, that's not really working for me. Well, now you have a basis to work from. You gave him, it's different if he says, I don't know what's going on here. That's bad. You never want to hear a director say, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what he's feeling. I can't connect to what he's thinking. That's bad. That means you aren't doing your job the way you really ought to be able to do your job. However, if you go in and he says, I know what he's thinking, I just don't think it fits, you haven't failed. You really haven't. Because you have communicated this idea clearly. And if you've communicated this idea clearly to him, and he knows what it is, it may or may not match, but at least he knows what it is. Imagine this little scenario. A lady wants to buy new draperies for her bedroom. So she goes into a store. She goes into the store, but all the draperies are gray. But there's little tags on them that say, well, this would be blue if you bought it. Or this one would be green if you bought it. Or this one would be red if you bought it. But she's brought herself a little throw pillow from her bed. And she brings this throw pillow and she holds it up to the gray and tries to imagine, what would the red look like with the blue? Well, what kind of blue? Periwinkle blue, sky blue, baby blue, navy blue, royal blue? I don't know. It just says it would be blue if I bought it, but right now it's gray. Okay? See how frustrating that would be for a person who's trying to buy draperies that way? The same is true of a director. They're bringing this little throw pillow of an idea in their head. They know what they want it to work like and work with. They've got the whole picture in mind. And if you come to dailies and you give them a bunch of gray, ill-defined, poorly expressed ideas with a bunch of caveats or warnings saying, well, okay, I understand this isn't real clear, but when I get into cleaning it up and stuff like that, it'll be a lot clearer. You're not earning your money, okay? You're stealing. That's not what animation, professional animation is. Professional animation is coming with clear, concise, easily understood, one-time viewing, completely understand what's going on kind of stuff, okay? That's why I spend so much time on blocking. Because if I get a buy-off on this, and a lot of times I do, sometimes I don't, but it's clear one way or the other, right? I have a path to follow that is it's filled with confidence. Filled with confidence. I go into dailies, I show this, and the director says, I dig what he's doing here, except for this one part, and he can point out a specific pose, a specific expression, a specific thing. He says, I don't think that part's working. I think he's a little too eager right there. I think his mouth is too big. He's a little too scary. Okay, that gives me an action item, something clear to work with. Okay, I can change that, but everything else is fine. So I go back to my desk, I go to the frame that's on, I change that pose, I've done all my notes. I don't have to worry about if a director makes a change, because it's all clear. Now I'm free to move forward and fill out all the little animation things that everybody loves to fill out. You know, the overlaps and the breakdowns and the secondary action and the weight shifts and the anticipations and the little finger twiddles and the eye twitches and all that stuff is now built on a great foundation. So that, in a nutshell, That's a pretty big nutshell. That, in a nutshell, is why I spend so much time blocking. And people who've worked with me, they know this is kind of crazy. They say, Keith takes a long time to block his scenes, but once he gets them blocked, that stuff just flies out of there. And I'm generally not slow. Okay, I usually do a lot of footage, but I don't do it crap. I don't just fart it out and hope for the best. I spend my time up front, where it's important, capturing that emotion, and from there on out, it's fast because it's totally filled with confidence. I don't have to guess. I don't have to try and find anything. I don't have to go, well, oh man, maybe this will help sell it. Help sell it. I got it sold 2 days ago in dailies. I'm going. Okay? That works for me. It keeps me employed, keeps my kids fed. So perhaps it will be useful to you. Next up, open versus closed staging of the face. All right, what's this thing about open versus closed staging of the face? Well, again, like I said back in the introduction, I've never read this anywhere. Nobody ever really taught it to me. It just kind of came about by noticing things. I noticed drawings that really kind of had a certain level of appeal to me in a moment. Had this going on, and you go back and watch good animation. I mean, really good animation by really good animators, regardless of medium. Whether they're hand-drawn, stop-motion, CG, whatever. And if there's a really deep acting moment, if it's an emotional moment that you really connect with, that you really feel like, wow, he really captured that. There's something going on there. Check and look for this one thing. It's a little bit of a homework assignment. Go watch your favorite animated movie and try and look through scenes where the animator is deciding to close off things and open things up with the face. So what do I mean by this? Okay? Well, I think it's easier for me to do a quick little introduction here on video and then get on the computer and show you with a puppet and explain through it some more. The quick little introduction is this. Our bodies in animation, or the character's body, I guess, is really just a puppet to express an internal reality. It's an external expression of an internal reality. I've used that phrase before, back a few months ago. That's really all animation is. That's all acting is. That's really what life interaction is. I'm in an argument with my wife. My body is going to express that internal reality of my inner turmoil. And I will not be able to control all the things that my body does. One of the things that we do is we flinch. Punch a person, they flinch. Okay? You do this little thing right there, they look down, look up, they come up. They flinch. It's a natural physical reaction to some kind of physical or even imaginary pain or threat. Okay? So imagine this. There's a person right here. This person is right here. And I'm talking with them. Now, I tilt my head. Look at my face right here. That's really interesting. This side's open. This side's closed. Notice, by open and closed, I mean take the distance from the corner of the mouth to the corner of the outside part of the eyebrow, or even the lid. You can take the whole thing. See how there's a big difference right there? This is squished, this is squashed, or stretched. It's squash and stretch, picking a side of the face. By opening, you're giving the impression that I am willing to be engaged with you. So, that's really interesting. Okay? By doing that, that's really interesting. Squishing this side of the face, opening this side of the face. It's a little unnatural to do it in person. I mean, you might be pushing it a bit much, like, But in animation, we're always exaggerating these things. So by opening it, I'm saying, I want to be a part of what we're going on. I'm open to you. I'm not threatened by you. I'm not flinching from you. I think you and I, we're on good grounds. Okay? So I open up that side of my face. Ta-da! That's really, yeah, good. I like cheese. Cheese is nice, as long as it's not gooey. If it's crumbly, good cheese. All right. Now, let's say this person says something that hurts my feelings. Well, maybe I might turn away. I might go, I don't know about that. I turn away from them. Okay, it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, yes, you would turn the character's head away. You would kind of close him off. But you wouldn't just leave this open. You would turn him away and kind of maybe pinch this off and keep this eye open and stage it in such a way that you can see that I'm not willing to deal with you right now. I'm flinching from you. I don't want to deal with you right now. We kind of, you see, I I don't want to deal with you right now. I don't care. I don't want to hear what you're saying. See, I'm kind of hiding this side of my face, and this side's open. This is the safe side. It's just a good way to think about it. The open side of the face is the safe side. The closed side of the face is either a side of unimportance or a side of threatening. Okay? In this instance, hey, oh yeah, we're doing pretty good. It's unimportant. It just accentuates. You got to have small to have big, right? So you make it small so that this feels open, so it gives a sense of openness. But here, the smallness is actually a threat. I'm hiding my head from the threat, or I'm hiding my face, my thoughts. Another place we can use this is if the character is going from an external expression of communication, like I'm communicating with you, and I'm expressing words, so open. But I have to find something inside my own self. I have to find a thought. So I look down and away, and I'm in my own world space. I'm in an internal mental space. That's another time to kind of close shop with whoever they're talking with. By closing off or narrowing down that side of the face, squashing it and stretching this side, you're saying in an emotional, physical, non-verbal way, I'm not really dealing with you at this moment. I mean, you're here, and we'll pick it up again, but I'm inside myself here, okay? I'm inside my own little space. I'm figuring something out that's mine. And once I figure it out, I'll bring it to you, and I'll open it up and share, okay? It's this closing and opening back and forth all the time that I try and use as much as possible. Is it a trick? Is it a hack? Is it a bag? I don't know, but it seems to work, and it really communicates in a nonverbal way. The other thing is it fills in with the properties of good appealing drawing. Asymmetry of shapes, contrapostal lines, not everything horizontal flat, no perpendicular lines, no right angles. I mean, you can get some really nice flow with some beautiful lines. With the brows, you can get beautiful lines. With the mouth, you can get beautiful lines. You can get this great sense of lively, alive characters if their face is a little more elastic. If their face is kind of China doll, and all you can work with is a head tilt and eye direction, it's pretty limiting. So that's why I try to work this in. It just brings a character to life. It brings that little piece of added reality, not in a reality sense, but internal reality. It expresses a thought in a very clear and concise way. So let's go ahead and look at some stuff on a computer. I'll show you just an example. It's really exaggerated, but let's take a look at it and see how it flows and see if it helps describe some of this stuff for you. Okay? Good.
All right. Let's take a look at this here. We've got I've got a couple of poses. First one is Murray looking to screen left, and this first screen right here, this first image, I've labeled it okay. It's not the greatest thing in the world. I mean, he looks happy, and it's a relatively appealing pose. It's got some line of action to it, and it's okay. Nothing great. The reason why I say it's okay is because I think it could be better. I think that you can accentuate the openness of him looking at the character or whatever he's looking at, and give a stronger sense of him welcoming that presence into his an emotional space. So the thing that I've done here is it's first, before we move on to take a look at the better version of this, let's take a look at a graph overlay of this current one. Now what I've done is I've drawn lines that kind of ride the top of the brow, and that kind of gives an indication it's the angle of the brow relative to the other angles in the face. The other one is I've drawn a line through the two pupils to kind of make a vector there, and another line is from each corner of the mouth to the other corner of the mouth. So these three lines are representative in the horizontal sense, and then I've also drawn the lines coming from the middle of the brow to the end of the nose, and then down to where the center point of the focus of the mouth is, usually where the lower lip is down the most. It's a kind of the vertical line is a little bit arbitrary, but it's there to kind of help show the angle of difference or lack thereof in this one of the horizontal lines. Now you'll see that most of the horizontal lines on his face are fairly parallel. That's a fun word to say. Say it 10 times. How about parallelogram? Woohoo! So anyways, the brow and the pupils and the corners of the mouth, you take those three horizontal lines, and they're very, very similar in their sense of what direction they go. There's no favoring to one side or the other. There's a little bit of a favoring to the open side, to the left hand, the screen left side, but it's not really pushed. Now let's take a look at the next version of this pose. The next one we see that I've taken Murray's face and I've pushed it a little bit. I've also deformed his head a little bit because I've built that into the rig to be able to kind of tilt his head a little bit more to give some more of a flow of a line through him. But I've taken the screen left eye and I've made it a bit bigger. I've scaled it up a little bit on the Y. I've taken the screen right eye and I've squashed it down just a little bit. I've taken the cheeks on the right hand side and I've kind of compressed them up, and also with the fleshy part underneath his eye, a little bit with the lid as well. And if you take a look at the mouth, I've kind of offset it so that it favors the screen right side, so that it kind of bunches up over there. Okay, and so I think that this is a better representation. It just feels, it has a lot more life. It feels more alive and more flexible. It feels a little less China dollish. Okay, so we have here the overlay of this. Now take a look at the overlay of this one with the orange lines. You'll see here that the lines for the brow and to the pupils and then to the corners of the mouth, there's greater fanning of the angles opening up to the screen left side of this image. You see that? So that what's happened here is I've compressed or squashed the screen right side of his face, and I've opened up or stretched the screen left side of his face. So really opening and closing the face is really just playing squash and stretch inside of shapes with the face. And you can do these things and push it a little bit further, and you'll notice that it just has a better flow to it. It just feels more open. You immediately get a greater sense that this is a character who's alive and who's thinking and who has a genuine interest in what's going on to his right, our screen left. Now, can you reverse this stuff? Well, of course you can reverse this stuff. I reverse it all the time. Let's take a look at this next image. Now here Murray is kind of turning away from the person that he was listening to or talking to, because he's kind of telling a lie. That's the imagination I had in my mind when I made this pose or this little test. I imagine that he's telling a lie. Now when you tell a lie, I mean, it takes a really special kind of liar to look you right straight in the eye and smile and lie. I mean, those people are snakes. So Murray's not quite like that kind of a guy. He's got a conscience and he tries to ignore it like we all do. But here he's going to search for a lie. Now, if you take a look at this, it's okay. You get a generic sense that he's concerned. He's turned away. The pose has changed in the body. There's a bit of a hunch in the shoulders, as if he's flinching behind something. I mean, it functions, but I don't think it's as good as it could be. I don't think this is the strongest thing in the world. Again, let's take a look at the overlay of the lines graphing out the face, and we'll see that again most of the horizontal lines are very parallel to one another. There's some change in angle, but for the most part the angle of the brows and of the pupils and the corners of the mouth is all fairly similar. It's all fairly similar, and so it's missing that sense of elasticity, that sense of really pushing it. So let's take a look at the better version, or what I think is a better version. And here I've played around quite a bit. This took me a while to find, I'll be honest with you. This pose in the face took me about 30 or 40 minutes to really dig in there and find it. Now some of you may say, good grief, 30 or 40 minutes for one pose? What are you, nuts? Well, I would say, if it's better, why not? It's one of those things where it's foundational. If this works, and if I get a buy off on it, and if the director likes it, or if I think it's better, if it's obviously better, which I think it is, why not? Because it's a foundation. You'll never have to find it again. Once you find it, you find it. So why not invest the 30 or 40 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever it takes to find it? So let's take a look at what I've done with this face here. The screen left eye, I've kind of crunched that up a bit more. The screen right eye, I've opened it up as far as the scale, but I've tried to keep the lids closed. Okay, I've really torqued around with the brows and also with the shape of the mouth and the cheeks. The big difference, if you look at it, is the change in the shape of the cheeks is really significant, because that's where you get a lot of that twisted energy inside of his face. That sense of, that he's really struggling, and there's a sense of pain on his face at trying to kind of dig up and tell this lie, and so it betrays him. It's one of those, this image right here shows a guy who's trying to lie and he's not very good at it. Now, the previous version was okay at that, but I think this version's far better. And if you take a look at the overlay, you'll see that the angles on this are working far better in my opinion. You get a strong sense that he's hiding. Okay, the side to the person, his right, screen left, that's the person he's hiding from. That's the person he does not want to talk to. And so by closing that person off in that side of his face, he's kind of flinching against the reality of that person being there, and that he's going to do something to lie to them. And the safe side is the screen right side, his left. That's the side where it's like he's kind of hiding behind his own body. Is this a hard and fast rule? No, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it is something that I look to put into almost every facial pose that I can work in if the moment calls for it. Now, does certain moments call for more or less? Oh, of course. I mean, it's like with all things with animation, it's all in the flavoring. But it's something to look at. Look at making your face alive. Connect the eyes and the mouth, and try and get away from those perpendicular lines. Push things a little bit more so that you're not stuck with just 90-degree angles on the face. Play with the angle of the mouth relative to the eyes, relative to the brow, and see what kind of combinations you can get. The really fun stuff is when you start having him close off that side of his face, but then still look at the other person. So like he's looking at them, but still hiding at the same time. That's the really deep stuff. That's like the king of subtext. Okay, here's an example of that. It's just fantastic when you're able to have a character looking at another character, but at the same time everything about their body is saying, I'm not really dealing with you honestly, or I'm not dealing with you openly here. This isn't something that I'm willingly going into. Okay, and so play around with this stuff and try and find these opportunities in your own characters and in your own work, and see if you can't maybe push it and get to that level where you're bringing this kind of connectivity to the face. That's the thing that really drove me to this. I was tired of looking at my own work and saying, gosh, it's just so static. There's not play around. There's not enough going on here in the face to really sell some deeper ideas. So this is something to try out. Okay? Okay, so let's take a look at our first pass blocking here. Now, first pass, this is like what I mean by that is my first pass. These are the major poses, okay? And in these major poses is all the emotion, every major emotional beat. There's nothing missing here, okay? From the very start, where he's waiting for the captain to show up on the screen, to when he says, Space Marshal Murray Lipinski reporting, sir. And then he settles in that self-satisfied confidence that he's got going on. But then, oh dear, he notices he's saluted with the wrong hand. You don't salute with your left hand, you salute with your right hand. So he switches to salute with the right hand. But here he's trying to, get by. There's a little bit of panic in there, barely contained fear, and then he gets yelled at, and so he flinches. He realizes he's screwed up again. So these are the big emotional beats for this guy. I could show this to a director and get a buy-off on just these basic expressions, but a lot of times what I want to do is I want to describe how he gets from point A to point B. Like this change from pose 6 to pose 7, that's a pretty big change. That's going to need some description. So we're going to need to put some breakdowns in there. And so what I mean by second pass blocking for myself is that I'm not changing the performance when I go to the next level, when I add things to this. I'm not changing the performance at all. I'm not going to touch these drawings. I'm not going to touch these poses. They work. They're doing what I want them to do. So first level, the foundation is built, but now I need to put some extra framing around it to help it stand up, so that it flows a little bit better, so that there's less guessing on the part of the director in dailies. So when I take it to dailies, if I were to take this to dailies, he wouldn't have to guess about how the guy's going to move from point A to point B in a lot of these things. And so starting from the beginning, from here to here is going to need a pretty decent sized breakdown. And I want the head to arc underneath, so I'm going to have to add a breakdown in there. And then from here to here is going to need another big breakdown. probably with an anticipation build. So this might take 2 breakdowns for me. One would be an anticipation, where he crunches down, a little bit of squash, so then another one where he can scoop under and come up on the stretch. And so that's going to need a couple of things there. From here to here is another big change. Okay, so this next level of blocking is really about addressing the mechanics. The first level was addressing the performance and the emotion. The second level of blocking is about addressing the mechanics, how you get from point A to point B. Now, a lot of this stuff I've thought of. If you remember from my thumbnails, I thought about a lot of these things and I drew the thumbnails. So if you look at VTS17, where I was covering the thumbnailing section of this, you'll see that I did think about how he was going to move through these things. So this is not all new. I'm not trying to make this up as I go along. I just didn't make some poses irrespective of how he was going to move, but I decided to break it down, chewing one piece at a time. And so the first piece I wanted to conquer was the emotion, and then once that's working and I know that I like this stuff, I'm going to run with it, and we're going to address the mechanics. So from here to here is going to need another big breakdown, maybe even a knees or something. We're not quite sure. We'll just get the skeleton of it in there. And then right here probably won't need any breakdown from this to this. It's not enough of a change, so I don't really need to build one in there, at least not for a blocking pass, to show to a director and get a buy off. Of course, I will have to clean it out, fill it in and stuff like that when I start, converting it over and changing this into a full animated file, and I've got my splines and it's running at full speed and all that stuff. Yeah, I'll clean it up then, but for the purposes of showing it for blocking, I really don't need to do much. And from that to that, I could probably get away with that. But to help sell it, I'm going to put an anticipation from here down into a squash, like a little minor take. So from this, he squashes down a bit in the head, and the little shoulders will come up and the elbows will come up a little bit. It'll be a little tiny squash, so that when he hits this, he'll kind of pop up into it to kind of help accentuate that change, because that's a pretty decent sized change in emotion right there, and it could easily get lost if I don't handle it right. So I will put an anticipation between these two things to help sell that. And then from here to here, well, that's a huge change. So there's a lot of mechanics that need to go on here. An anticipation from here into an up, and then he goes down and the hand switches, and then there's a drag of this hand going up, and then he unfurls and snaps. This one will probably have at least 3 breakdowns in it, because it's going to need it from this to this. I mean, that's a big change, but the fun thing is you can really define a lot of the motion, how you get from here to here, and a lot of the fun of watching him do this can be seen in there. And I can even put a lot of business in there if I wanted to. This is the one place where from here to here, it's the really funny part of the shot. I mean, the other parts are funny too, but this is supposed to be the funny part of the shot. I mean, look at that face. Doesn't that say funny? So if I want, I can even put like crazy stuff in between from here to here. I'll explore that later, but for now, let's think about maybe adding probably 3 breakdowns to help define that motion, the mechanics of how he gets from point A to point B. Remember, second pass blocking for me is mechanics, and that's just, this isn't a hard and fast rule as far as the naming of this stuff, the nomenclature, because in some studios, second pass blocking just basically means you got a buy off in the first pass, and the second pass is kind of like a check-in stage. It was like that at DNA. Second pass blocking was really when you had notes on your first pass in dailies, and then you had to address those notes and bring it back. The naming of this stuff, I'm just using second pass blocking as a way of describing the next thing I work on, but it's still in the blocking stage, so I hope that makes sense. And then from here to here, probably just 1 breakdown, and then from this I'll probably do a settle out, so we'll add 1 more frame there. So we've got our work cut out for us when we get into doing the breakdowns on this guy next month. I wanted to go ahead and set the stage for that so you guys can start thinking about it. Maybe here's a nice little assignment for you. Think this through and think, how would you, what breakdowns would you use for these poses? and kick those ideas around. And hey, if you want, go ahead and send them to me. If you work out some solutions, send them to me, and maybe we can kick around some ideas. And next month, maybe I'll go ahead and put a few of those in the next month's video and show some of the stuff that folks have decided or tried to do with this. I think that'd be fun to do, to kind of get it a little more interactive, so that you guys can try your hand at some different breakdowns based off of these poses that I've built, and maybe we can come up with something fun and cool. So anyhow, that's my little primer on second pass blocking. We'll get into that a lot more next month.
All right, that's it for this month. We filled it right up to the top. Right to the top. Thanks again for being a part of this. I hope you all stick around and see what's coming up next. Next month, we're going to take this scene and we're going to work on second pass blocking a lot. Today, I just touched on the ideas behind it. Next month, I get into the actual application of, like, this is really how you do it and what I think of and how I build it out. It's going to be pretty intense in a sense. It might be one of those videos you might need to stop and rewind and watch it a few times to catch what I'm doing. I'll take it slow. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you in the dust. Another thing I wanted to try and do is this has been a one-way street a lot for about the last year and a half, and it's not bad because there's a lot of things I wanted to say, and there's still a lot of things I haven't even touched yet, a lot of things I still want to say. But I felt like, you know what, I'm being unfair. I'm just taking the microphone and just running with it. And you guys have given me great feedback, and the support has been fantastic. The questions have been great, and it's the questions that I really enjoy. So here's what we're going to do, okay? If you've watched this far, pay attention. You subscribers, that's you sitting right there on your desk. Hi, subscriber. It's good to see you. Okay. You subscribers have excellent questions, awesome questions, because you're the ones that want to learn. You know what you want to figure out. So here's what we're going to do. Email me your question. And every month from here on out, I will answer at least one question. How long it will take to answer that question really depends on the question, doesn't it? If you ask me the question, well, how do you adjust the tangent on a curve in an F-curve editor? Well, that might take 2 seconds to answer. I probably won't bother with those, but it's wide open. You guys ask me the question. I want to make this interactive. I want to make this a kind of learning experience that you feel connected to, that's a part of your life that addresses your needs. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot more questions than I could possibly answer every month, but I'm going to take time every month to answer at least one, if not more, questions. I'll probably choose which ones I answer to see if there's any similarities. Like if I get 5 emails saying, hey, can you tell me how to handle a blink? I'll probably handle a blink the next month, okay? If I have 5 emails about a blink and 1 about a walk cycle, I'm probably not going to handle the walk cycle right away. But whatever. You guys ask, send me your emails, keithlango@keithlango.com or klango@klangoanimation.com. Send me the email. Send me the question. Let me help you. Help yourself. Oh, okay. So that's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to that because you guys have some great ideas, and so this is going to be cool. This is how we're going to open this thing up and get really crazy with it, okay? So that's going to be good. It's going to be good. Anyhow, that's it for this month. I really do thank you guys for being a part of it. It's fantastic to be able to do the good things we're able to do with the money from this, to be able to have the freedom to do these things, and to express and communicate these ideas to you. It's a life dream. It really is. And I want to thank you guys for helping me do this. I want to help you achieve your life dreams of being a better animator. Whether you want to do this professionally or whether you want to do it as a hobby, I want to help you be good at it. And so help me help you be good at what you want to do. All right? So until next month, all the best. Be good to each other. God bless, and we'll see you then.